Welcome to today's ILEAFORUM conversation powered by our friends at Giants Enterprises. As you can see on probably the right-hand side of your screen, the Event Brew Crew podcast teammates are on the line with us to kick off a conversation in just a couple of minutes. My name is Lisa Marks. I'm one of your ILEA International Board of Governors. It's my pleasure and my honor to be once again part of another webinar here with all of you. I will say that after 6 months, 6.5 months, I think, since our world sort of turned upside down as we know it, and we put together on behalf of ILEA a COVID-19 hour by hour sort of crisis strategy team consisting of myself, everybody's good friend Dustin Westling, as well as Karine Kessel, who I think is on the line. Today will be my last podcast, or what am I? I'm not hosting a podcast, I'm on video staring at myself. Today is my last webinar after 6 months of putting some content together with my team for all of you. I'm so delighted to have on the line Gwen McNutt, who is Regional External Affairs Manager at Comcast and also the head of the ILEA Professional Development Team, whose team is going to continue down the runway with ILEA webinars and bring you all that awesome virtual content that you are used to. Gwen, give everyone a wave. I wanted to give you a chance here to say hello and maybe just give us a little teaser about what to expect in October.
Hi, thank you, Lisa. Hi, everybody. Thanks for joining today. You know, the professional development team is really excited about taking over these webinars. We have some really great plans coming up. We're also going to be working in conjunction with the Diversity, Equity, Inclusion Task Force to bring some really interesting and powerful webinars leading into the future. Starting with October, October is Global Diversity Month, and we'll be launching a series of things in October, but we'll also be having our first webinar in conjunction with the DEI Task Force, and that is going to be held on October 14th. And the name of that webinar will be Leaning into Diversity, Practical Steps to Making Change. And so there'll be some really great information coming out in the next week or two, just talking about the members of the panel that will be involved and some of the other great things that we have coming up. So look forward to working with everybody and bringing some great content into the future. Thanks, Lisa.
Oh, awesome. Thanks, Gwen. It's really looking forward to joining as an attendee and looking forward to all you're doing. Thank you so much for everything you've done already for ILEA since last year and up until now, and looking forward to the future. Huge thanks to Karine and Dustin. The camaraderie, I think we had some fun doing this. It certainly gave us each a sense of purpose back in March when we were in our homes and not able to go wherever we usually go. So it's been a lot of fun collaborating with you guys, and here's to the future. I want to say a huge thank you and hello to all of our ILEA members on the line. Honestly, you guys, without you taking part in ILEA and choosing to sort of own your path in this industry by taking out an ILEA membership, we really can't put on virtual content like this. So it's all because of you. We get to be here today. So huge thank you to you. If you aren't an ILEA member yet, that's okay. We welcome you here as always. I encourage you to hop on ILEAHub.com and find the chapter closest to you, reach out to the president and the team there and find out what's going on in your region. There's always content happening, whether it's in person, slowly but surely, or virtual online. There's a community there for you anytime. As always, I want to say a huge thank you to our friends and partners at Giants Enterprises. We also cannot produce content like this without our partners. So really, really big thanks to them. Here's a little snippet about Giants. Giants Enterprises is dedicated to the curation and development of new ventures complementary to the San Francisco Giants franchise by delivering larger than life experiences to millions at Oracle Park and beyond. I think I've said this 5 or 10 times since COVID. Hopefully soon, they are bringing millions back to Oracle Park and beyond in person. Giants Enterprises creates memorable events, abundant with excitement and engagement, both virtually and in person for their varied partners, as well as local and international visitors. Again, hopefully very soon. Positioned at the intersection of sports, entertainment, meetings, events, tourism, and hospitality, Giants Enterprises provides a rare combination of people, experiences, and platforms necessary to create giant impressions. Thank you so much again to our friends of the Giants. Our entire membership is super grateful for all that you've done for us, enabling today's conversation and more. So let's talk a little bit about Zoom logistics, and then we're going to get the conversation underway, and I'm going to go off video and hang out and laugh at the Brew crew as they chat us through this conversation. So you are probably well accustomed to the chat box. Keep engaging in there, drop your thoughts. Feel free to converse amongst yourselves. That is a great place for thought sharing and comments. In the question and answer, click the question and answer button along the bottom of your Zoom platform. That will open up a secondary window. That is where you type in questions that you truly want the Event Brew team to answer. They're going to look there first for questions from the audience. So I encourage you to drop your clear and concise questions for the Event Brew conversation in there. As Will mentioned off the top of the show, please ensure you in the chat have clicked all panelists and all attendees so that everyone on the line can see whatever you're dropping in there. Promote questions in the Q&A box to bump them up to the top so you don't have to ask the same question twice. We'll get the picture, just hit like. This meeting is being recorded. So as always, you'll see the recording on ILEAHub.com in a day or two. And then final note is in your Zoom platform, you should see a button that says either speaker view or gallery view. When we start the conversation in just a couple minutes, I encourage you to click it and ensure that it's on gallery view so that you can see the Brew crew conversing all sort of in one interface, nice and easy, as versus speaker view. I think that's all that I've got for you guys today. So I'm gonna step aside, but before I do, I'm gonna introduce the amazing team at the Event Brew podcast known as the Brew Crew. We've all been friends for a long time in the industry, but it's such an awesome experience today to have you guys on our webinar series. Thank you so much for being here. Of course, as always, powered by our friends at Giants Enterprises. So today is going to be a witty, humorous, daring, bold, honest, challenging potentially, but certainly insightful and I know very smart conversation. So it's my pleasure to introduce to you my friends and the amazing crew at the Brew Crew. So Event Brew is a podcast. You can find it anywhere that you find your other podcasts. It is controversial. I understand that sometimes there's emails that come into their inbox following a podcast with varied opinions about certain things they talked about, and that's okay. And I think that's actually encouraged. It is real talk about the industry and related topics. And it's refreshingly honest and refreshingly witty in my opinion. So Alexandra, we can just kill this slide and I'm going to introduce the crew and we're going to get this going. So Nick Borelli in the purple shirt with the animated background. Nick Borelli owns and operates Borelli Strategies. He's a consultant, author, speaker, specializing in marketing for live events and event companies. And he's the one who is very curious about your favorite Pokemon. Hi, Nick.
How's it going?
It's going really well. Thanks for being here.
Yeah, I'm just trying to catch some while I'm talking. That's why I brought that up.
It's very on brand. I like it. Very consistent. Tui Deep is CGSP, DMCP, CSEP, has a ton of acronyms after her name, is coming in hot today as is also the ILEA Los Angeles president. And like many event professionals is a free agent, AKA very unemployed due to COVID-19, up for hire, super quality, and has asked me to say that unlike the other three Event Brew co-hosts who own their own business, she's sipping her tea while she's watching y'all run your businesses, and she is ready for hire. So Tui, thank you so much for being here.
It's awesome being here. Thank you guys.
Will Kieran, everybody's favorite buddy in either bright orange or bright green t-shirts, walking around conferences.
I'm excited to be here, and yeah, the orange to match the orange logo for Event Brew.
I love it. Again, consistent and on brand. So Will is the Chief Event Einstein at Endless Events and started this whole Event Brew podcast situation. I remember being in whatever city we were in, Minneapolis, I think, for a global event forum, and you tapped Dustin on the shoulder and said, and I think I heard you say, we need someone as opinionated and who stands out as much as you do, and Dustin, I think, was sold on that. So thank you so much for being here. I'm really looking forward to the conversation.
Stoked to be here.
And last but certainly not least, Dustin Westling. Dustin is managing partner at One West Event Design and Logistics in Canada, as well as ILEA International Secretary Treasurer on the Executive Committee, and my bestie. Dustin, it's always a fun experience for us to not just solely be hosting webinars together, but now you're speaking and contributing to the conversation as you always do. So it's great to see you here as well.
Awesome. Thanks for all you do, Lisa. I appreciate it.
My pleasure. So I'm going to go off video and honestly pass it over to you guys. Please don't burn down the ship, and I will see you at the end of the show.
Awesome.
Burn down the ship. Burn
Thanks,
down.
Lisa. I appreciate the intro. We are going to record this for our podcast, so we're going to do a really quick introduction. It's you might be hearing the same names twice, but know that we are recording, and I hope you guys have a good time. Remember, we are all individuals with our own opinions, and nothing we say reflects upon ILEA or its leadership. Here we go. Everybody behave yourself, please. I'm starting to get nervous now. All right. Welcome back to Event Brew, my friends. We have a very special episode today that we're really excited for. I don't know how to, are we live? Is that a fair statement? What would you call this?
Yeah, we'd say live. Yeah.
Checking my pulse. Yeah, so far.
Yeah, great. Well, put your mask back on.
Yeah.
We're live for the first time. We have the absolute pleasure and honor of being on the ILEA webinar platform today, and we've got quite a few ILEA members or fans of ILEA that are joining us and listening in and blowing up the chat box. And we're going to have a great conversation about what the last 6.5 months have looked like in this new crazy world we're in. But before we get started, first, I'm just going to introduce my friends really quickly here. Nick Borelli, say hi.
Hey.
Hey, Will Curran, say hi.
Yo.
Tui Deep, say hi.
Something that's not high.
Yeah, exactly. Keep it going.
So instead of saying something that's not high, you just said something that's not high. Okay, Tui.
So
That's
technically
fine.
you said hi.
That's fine.
Yeah.
I'm
Done
Dustin
fine.
Westling. Quickly around, what's everybody drinking today? Nick, what is your brew for today?
Oh man.
Prepare
I'm-
yourselves.
Yeah, I mean,
Oh, God.
I'm just finished a Mountain Dew Zero because they're just the
Nick.
best. But these, these sparkling ice caffeinated flavored waters, so good, so good.
What's your favorite ingredient?
Caffeinated water.
Yeah, I mean, why?
it's
Water's
covered in
water's
water.
great, but like I think that science just it's there. We can use it. I think I like the malic acid in it. I'm looking
I
at the
love
ingredients.
malic acid.
So good. It's one of my
Favorite flavor.
and ester gum, which is probably in my top 5 gums for sure.
Next to
Oh,
5. and
Nick, your
wintergreen.
poor body. Oh, Lord. Will, what kind of matcha witchcraft are you drinking today?
I'm drinking some classic David Rio chai, as I'm always usually drinking at this hour. So yeah, it's very delicious and perfectly steeped to perfection.
Great. Sounds boring. Tui, what are you drinking?
So for all those who don't normally listen to our podcast and now will be, Nick usually drinks like the toxic whatever, and I have all the organic stuff. So I am drinking organic honeydew
Guava.
that
Oh.
I freshly squeezed.
Damn it.
Word.
Still the honeydew is still around, isn't it?
It is. It's
I mean,
in
I
season.
have like when I drink Monster Energy drinks, I end up squeezing like uncontrollably a lot. So it's very similar. I may as well put like a grapefruit in there, I suppose.
That is not healthy, Nick. That's not good. When your body starts squeezing things for no reason, you probably should
Everything's fine.
switch to
Everything's
water.
There's a reason.
Everything's fine.
But
Everything's
yeah.
Well, I am drinking grapefruit bubbly this morning. We usually record in the evening so we can actually have a brew. So this is a bit off for us.
Is there a time where you
Tui
can't
and I are
drink?
drinking brews. She's fruit brew, and
Yeah.
I'm drinking tea brew. So
Well, I'm sure this has had to be brewed in some form at some point.
Yeah,
Shout-
mine was
shout out
cooked up in a lab, but I will say that like I can't imagine that there's an hour of the day where you can't drink in 2020. Like do
This
what you
is
gotta
true.
do what you got to do.
it's 2020.
This is
You can
true.
start drinking now.
Maybe
Yeah,
I'll
you-
crack a beer at the halfway point then.
Yeah, it doesn't
Shout-
matter.
Shout outs
Oh,
to
my treat is
Rachel,
about
by
to
the
kick
way.
in. It's
There
going
you
to
go.
kick in a half an hour.
Ah, there we are.
Tui, by the way, Rachel Siren, is that how you say your name? Siren says honeydew is the money melon.
Hmm.
That's a classic Simpsons quote.
Money melon on
Honeydew
that.
is the money melon.
Sheeran. Even better last
Sharon.
name. I love it.
So
She's my
since we're
gallery girl.
on ILEA's platform, and we cannot we can edit this post, but everybody that's listening has to hear us do this all in one go. So why don't we just really quickly talk about ILEA really quickly? Let's talk about what experience you have with ILEA, maybe how you found it, maybe why you love it. If you don't love it, I'd prefer if you don't say anything at all. And we'll go in the same order. Nick, talk about ILEA.
Yeah, I at one point was volunteer of the year because I had 6 different roles simultaneously. So I would encourage all of you not to do that. Find one and do it well, as opposed to being stretched to your limit. But that said, I've been a chapter president, a number of chapter roles. I've been international chair of communications and all kinds of fun stuff. And I think the most important thing that I've been is the recipient of a lot of really great friendships all over the world because of ILEA. I mean, I hung out with a good friend of mine last year while we were hanging out together in Estonia, and we were with 2 or 3 other people that we know from ILEA in Estonia, right? So like that's the kind of like really things that you can't really put on a resume, or you look at check a box as far as why associations can be great if you put the time in and you put the work in yourself and put yourself out there. The things that you can get out of it are more than just the traditional things that you would find as far as ROI. It's friendships that can be global, like we have today.
That's so awesome. And now already Will is accusing me of softball questions in the chat. So your response better be amazing, or I'm going to take it out on you for the rest of this.
Yeah. So like when my first ISIS meeting, as it was actually, I came and I was still in college at the time, and I was by far the youngest person, and I went to it and I felt like a complete outsider. I'm not going to lie. Like felt like that guy, like when you go to your first networking event, I was like, I don't know any of these people. And like, honestly, I hated it. Like I never went back because I was just like, there's no way. Like I'm literally like, I felt like it was so cliquey and everything like that. Like all the stereotypical stuff we try not to do in associations. Like it was that. And it took many years later that after doing like a bunch of content, someone that I knew in the event search that I really trusted said, hey, do you want to come and be the VP of communications? You just know how to do this communication stuff really well. And I was like, well, if you're in an association, like all the powers in the board, like if you're on the board, that's where you get the most value from an association. So I was like, sure, I'll do it. And lo and behold, I didn't realize like the chapter had like 4 members and I was one of them. And like, we were really struggling to get people in the door, mainly because we had no idea like what we were, and we were trying to be like everybody else. Right. And so that year we actually, I'm sure as many people have at some point in leadership, we had to like have the hard conversation of like, should we shut down this chapter? And actually speaking of Giants Enterprises, Sarah Grauf actually came into town, and there was this big meeting with all the like ILEA people, and it's like our board of 4 people being like, yeah, we're going to shut this down. And they're like, no, you're not. And then at the end of the meeting, they go, okay, so Will, like, do you want to lead this and do this whole thing? And I was just like, I've never been a president of a chapter of I just joined this like 7 months ago, and I became the chapter president of Arizona, and eventually got way more in depth with everything, got way more involved, and started building some deeper relationships. Met all you guys, obviously. And that's how I like ended up actually completely changing around my whole opinion of like what these meetings were. Instead of it feeling like cliquey and everything like that, I learned that like, hey, it's about like building the deeper relationships. And like, if you felt like you're a cliquey, it means you should probably go up to that clique and introduce yourself.
Wow, must be nice, Will, just to like speedway through that. I had to serve as VP of Programs and Education at 2 different destinations, Las Vegas and Los Angeles, before I became president here in Los Angeles. So I started in 2012 as a student member. And the ILEA experience I had was so welcoming and warm because I was a student. I couldn't give these business owners, supplier partners, any sort of lead, any sort of money, yet they still welcomed me, and they wanted me to be a part of their conversation. And it felt like that we're family. And then we're all just really crazy to begin with. Like, right. I feel like out of all the people, this is why I feel like we started Event Brew, because it's the conversations that you have after a conference in the lobby bar, the true, genuine, authentic connections. So that's my little 2 cents. What about you, Dustin?
Yeah, ILEA's been around my life since I think 2008, which doesn't seem that long ago until you actually think about it. That's 12 years ago. So I have done the local board thing. I chaired the Canadian affiliate, and now I'm on the board of governors. And like most of you have said, this ILEA has been such a huge relationship builder, and I truly have friends around the world that I gained through my contributions to ILEA, and yeah, it has been a really powerful and incredible thing. So that was good. That's how we all got to
Dustin.
ILEA. Was that too softball for you?
That was too
jackass?
softball, but I'm going to make you feel really old. Dustin, I graduated high school in 2008. You're welcome.
Me too. Me too.
You sure don't look like it.
0.08.
Oh.
Not you, Tui. I would never talk to you that way. Okay.
We're going to get married so I can go to Canada one day.
Me too.
It's true. I'm taking proposals. Anybody wants to come be a Canadian, I will take
Join
multiple.
the polygamy of Dustin.
Yeah, if you've listened to us before, you'll know this is an ongoing thing. Okay, let's start chatting. Let's start chatting about what's going on in the last 6 months. So before we got into this, I did a little tour through all of our episodes since the lockdown started, and I was actually surprised that we were talking about coronavirus in February, which seems quite ahead of its time, considering we didn't get the lockdown till March. So I think it was led.
I should have told people.
We probably should have. It was posted before. You guys, if you were following our podcast, you would have known this damn thing was coming. So one of the episodes that stood out to me was on February 27th. We were talking about designing events with empathy. And we were obviously talking about live events. And I think the whole conversation was really based around what designing with empathy when it comes to live events. And it stood out for me because I think that is such a huge conversation right now, is how do you design with empathy in this new virtual world? Sorry, I shouldn't call it a new virtual world because Will just roll his eyes at me. In this world we found ourselves in, where most of what we're doing is virtual. So my question for the team is, what are you seeing that's working? What are you seeing out there that you can tell that somebody is putting some empathy towards the decisions they're making, or where do we still have some room to improve?
I'll go. So empathy is important now more than ever. And I feel like this pandemic pause has given us an opportunity to just be authentic and be us, right? I think this is like the third time I probably put on makeup since March, and I did it for Lisa, right? Oh yeah, you guys know, because you guys see me like, oh wow, at least did she even brush her hair? She going for the dread look? But it's like we're able just to be us, and we're able to be compassionate when the baby's crying in the background, when the dogs are barking, when we have deliveries coming in and out, working remote, and all of that. So for me, a great example designing empathy within events, especially virtual, is I have a 2020 vision group, and we did a presentation party, and I encourage everyone to do this. It's hilarious. Everyone comes into a Zoom, Google Meets, whatever platform, and they do a presentation for up to 5 minutes on anything they want. It could be informative, it can be funny, it can be just like ridiculous, random. It is so, I probably was laughing and crying like for a good 2 hours that evening. So that's my thing. Anyone else designing with empathy?
I love that. Nick, tell me about empathy. Tell me where we're at. I think you're going to tell me what we need to improve on, which is okay. That's what we want to hear.
Yeah, as a consultant, I'm generally not a person who says like everything's great, because then I don't get paid. But yeah, I mean, I think that a lot of the things that we've been saying in the events industry, it turns out we've only been saying them and we haven't actually been living them. And I think that the reason for a lot of that is, and there's a lot of cliches out there that actually haven't really taken root and need to now, is because things were good. We were in the ascent, we were in the salad days. And I think it's funny because like no innovation generally really happens in good times. And we were thinking we were in a time where yeah, exactly. I said salad. I won't eat it. But we were thinking that, we were innovating and that we were doing, we were going to the peaks of where we could do. But the reality is that we didn't have enough opposition to what we do in order to truly test us. We were just taking advantage of trends in technology specifically that were existing in all other industries that we were probably lagging in, honestly, but it was still better than it's ever been to show ROI for what we do. And that made it feel like we were on the top of the world. And the reality is that we only kind of like dipped our toes into the water of things that we really need now, skills we really need now, like designing with empathy and using design thinking as the apparatus for events. And then the other half of it is we've said that we were storytellers, but we really weren't telling stories. We were doing, and I think this is the biggest disconnect of 2020 between event professionals, skill sets and where they come from and how they're built and why they're not excelling right now, in my opinion, on average, is that I think majority of event people are hospitality people, first and foremost. I think that the industry came out of hospitality. And the stress of the last 15 years has been on the word experiential as the kind of, what we do, and let's make everything more experiential. And experiential, I believe, is a word that describes experiences that have some root in hospitality, where I don't believe virtual events do at all. I think that they're devoid for the most part of hospitality, and I think that they have a diminished number of senses that are actually engaged. Therefore, I don't believe that they are inherently experiential. And I think that they're different enough from where people start. The thing that they actually love about events, face-to-face events, that the disconnect that I'm seeing and the potential that I'm not seeing met by actual event professionals in the virtual world is because of that. So I don't believe we have virtual event professionals who are on average the people who are going to be the innovators in the virtual space. I think it's going to come from outside of the industry. I don't think that the people who have a calling to work in face-to-face are going to be the people who figure it out for virtual. I think that some may, but they're not going to be the innovators. I believe it's going to come from outside of the events industry, or from a very select few who are willing to throw out pretty much everything that they've learned and where they come from and build themselves up from the ground up, including concepts like design thinking, which is a really, really stripped down way to approach problems that it starts with empathetic design and is more about telling stories that change behaviors than it is about making people feel comfortable or engaging their senses. So yeah, I mean, I'll go so far as to say I don't think that the majority of the industry has what it takes to be the people who take us across the mountain. I think that we have a bunch of everyone's going to be, can I go biblical? They're going to be Moses. They're going to get to the edge, but they're not going to go to the promised land.
Oh, well, shots fired. Shots fired. What do you think?
I think Heidi has a good point too. She says, I feel like we are now TV producers.
Yeah.
Yes.
As well, which is very true, because like it's crazy how much video content like even we've had to like produce like very, very rapidly. It's a total shift in how everything's done, right? Like, oh, everything's pre-recorded, all these things like that. Yeah, I definitely think that I actually like a lot of what you guys are saying. I think one of the things when it comes to the empathy side of things as well is that like I think that people also are more empathetic to also mistakes and challenging different new ideas and trying crazy things. Like this time, like very proved that like there were so many people that didn't know how to use computers 100%, right? Or didn't know how to, work remotely and like, and let alone start to produce a whole virtual event. And people are really forgiving in terms of like, crazy things to be tried and people experimenting and things like that. But that soon will come to an end after, right now we're going a couple months now, but a year from March, people are going to be like, well, now we're expecting it to be all buttoned up and good to go as well.
Mm-hmm. What are some things, Will, in your world? Because I mean, your business is doing well with all of this. You've you've seen growth. On this conversation about empathy, is this something that you're, empathetic design? Is this something that you're talking to your team about? Is this something that clients are talking about yet, or are we still in this sort of rush to market mode, where everything is just happening so rapidly fast that maybe some of these strategies are not being given the time they need?
Yeah, rush to market mode for sure. And definitely that a lot of people are trying to take the in-person the in-person circle peg, is it right? The in-person circle peg and
Something
shove
like
the
that.
square virtual peg through it, right? Like they're trying to go to Nick's analogy he always uses. People are always trying to do that, like take what they did in person and turn it virtual. And it's ironic because we had a webinar called How to Convert Your In-Person Event to Virtual, right? But like, I think the thing is that it also, people haven't had a chance because they're in such a rush mode. The people who are putting on these gigantic conferences, there's so much pressure to like hit the budgets, get the numbers in, that they don't have time to like go and explore and see like, hey, I've never done virtual reality before. Let me go try that out. Oh, hey, I've never, played a like massive multiplayer online game. I've never watched a Twitch streamer. Like all these things I think that you can gain inspiration from. No one seems to have time for them in any sort of way. And that's totally understandable right now. But like, I think that, yes, there's a lot of same old, it feels like. And it's ironic because we're only a couple months into this. Like we're executing events that people were starting to plan in the, April, May, March area. But yeah, I think there's definitely a lot of work to go.
I was chatting with a colleague of mine last week, Pierre Merlot. Some of you will know him from our UVC podcast. Anyways, he's a super talented lighting designer, amongst other things, here in Canada. So we're doing a brainstorm. We're talking about some specific client events, client fundraisers, and we're talking about a solution for them because they can't have a live in person. And at one point he stopped me and he says, stop trying to take that event and fit it into the virtual model. What we need to do is we need to take the virtual model and start to build a new event within that. And as soon as he said that to me, I thought, Jesus, I am trying to do that. I'm trying to take what always was and figure out how do we make all the things that we did in person work online. And it was the wrong approach. And as soon as I started to open my mind up to say, okay, this is the capabilities that are out there in the world. This is where we're at with technology. What can we create within that? Everything started to light up for me. So it was a good learning lesson. Yeah. So thanks, team. So another podcast we did, you're going to have to go way back to March 26th. We were talking about Stronger Together, how event profs can support each other right now. And the first thing that popped into my head is, how are we doing with that? What have we seen accomplished in the communities? How have we come together? Success stories, where do we need to work a little bit further? I think a couple things that stand out in my mind is definitely some organization of people and their thoughts have come out of this. Now more than ever before, we're seeing event professionals come together to have their voice heard. So yeah, I'm curious to know from each of you, or if you've got any input here. I know Tui, you participated in I'm a
bobber.
Yes, I see you, Tui.
So
I get it.
she's
I get the
making
joke.
weird
I get the
faces.
joke. We recorded a podcast last night. We were talking about how women feel like they don't get the same seat at the table when they're in a virtual environment. So that was Tui's way of cueing me to say that she wants to talk. So I'm going to shut up and let you talk.
What was the question?
Yeah, see, this is the problem, Tui. Oh,
No, we
Tui.
were talking about, coming stronger together. One thing
Yeah.
I love is hearing everyone's stories, like outside, taking that professional mask off. I love learning about you guys, like each and every single one of you. I love seeing where we're putting our creativity, and everyone is creative. I love eating dinner that I cooked versus hors d'oeuvres in a free open bar at our, networking events. And I love seeing how people are take a shot pivoting, and not just within their professional life, but within their personal and what they're using that time for people that are unemployed and are going rollerblading on the Venice, boardwalk and making juices and bread.
We don't have that in Cleveland. Sorry.
Tui, tell us about the empty table event that you guys did in LA, and just your involvement and how it felt.
Yeah, so it wasn't just empty tables and, like it was just an empty event. It was the One Voice event, and they are happening all over. I believe there was is it recorded and on the website, the Event Live Coalition taping?
Yeah, that's live.
Go check that out. It's really informative. I know when we first recorded, we were all like, where did this come from? It was from a group of passionate event professionals that wanted to take action. And so that was a perk of not just being an ILEA member, but representing the leadership team. And they just reached out, asked for us to share their content. We said, of course. And with Los Angeles Board of Directors, we're huge right now on diversity, inclusion, and community, and not just within the events world, but in our local community here in Los Angeles. So it was a wonderful, great way to get the press out, because we're a fairly new industry, right, compared to all the others. And we don't really have that voice, right? Like from a federal level, from a government level, we don't have those lobbyists that will fight for us like the airlines do and such. And so, yeah, that was a really great, powerful event. And I almost teared up a little bit because I haven't been to an event of that size, even though the only people there was press and speakers. It was wonderful to be able to feel that with everyone else.
That's awesome. I'm seeing in the chat some people are mentioning other empty events and different
Say their names, give them shout outs.
Different coalitions. Mary Ellen Miller, I'm talking about you. And we're always looking for what is going on out there. So feel free to throw it into the chat and we'll capture it for future conversations. Nick, how do you think?
Wait. I want to bring up a controversial opinion. You brought this up at the last episode that you said you were starting to wonder whether we're all in this together or this is just all happening to us at the same time.
So did you think that was yours to steal? Like you just
you're gonna come back around. Oh, sorry. I just
He's
wanted to
serving
bring
you
it up.
up,
I thought
Dustin.
it was so wise.
Catfight,
I
It
thought
so
it was
wise.
so wise.
He's setting you up, Dustin.
I just want I want to actually have a thought-provoking hard conversation, Dustin, over here.
We're gonna get there. Jesus. Okay. Well, now that you've said it, so I'm gonna actually ask Nick that question. So Nick,
because he wasn't there,
are we all in it together or are we all just in it at the same time?
We're all in it at the same time.
100%.
Yeah.
I agree.
To be fair, other industries are all have experienced it too, where it doesn't matter about the youth of the industry as much as I believe the unprecedented scope and scale of this, and that it is hitting everything globally at the same time. So like I think there's other industries that are also in as much nearly as much pain. Let's say I don't think that we really need to like rank who is in the most pain, or I don't think that's really that valuable, but that's a thing, right? So I don't think it's just something that the events industry is facing, and therefore I don't think it's something that is you can just say is that, and I don't think that the event industry really is together. I don't think it was together before. I don't think it's together now. I don't think it'll be together after this. I think that the events industry is, and this has been talked about a lot in the halls of ILEA for a long time, is that the event industry is kind of not really an industry. It's like almost bigger than that. It is a number of different industries that come together to produce live events, and because of that, coupled with the fact that there is a huge percentage of the industry that is small businesses. They don't have the ability to, like Tui mentioned, like the airlines. So how many airlines are there? A dozen that are valuable. We have event businesses that are single ops that are insanely high in volume, right? Like literally how many single op DJs are there that perform a significant amount of events in the industry? Huge amount. And to get all of those people who have decided that they want to do a passion job and not also listen to someone else telling them what to do, to all get those types of people together under a umbrella. And then when you consider that live events are, we've talked about this in the podcast, Are they, sports? Are they plays? Are they trade shows, exhibitions, weddings, right? Like all these different things that constitute all of these different experiences. The idea of everyone being on the same page and everyone being tiny, tiny businesses it's very unlikely. So the large significant voice that can make things happen, as was talked about in the chat, we will never achieve that because that's not who we are. It's a huge collection of collaborative mavericks frequently who come together and make magic and disappear and go off into their own, the next gig. We're just not lawyers, doctors, and airlines who are huge mega corporations that control things because there's huge barriers to entry that make it so things like this can't happen. So even the movie industry, I would say, they're experiencing it at the same time. There's only a few different producers of movies in any significant volume. There's only a few different outlets for them, and yet they're completely lost and hopeless as well. So I think it's even the almost opposite of scale and type of people and organizations who are going through this very similarly to how we are, believe it or not, and don't have the ability to do that. Now, once this passes, diminishes or what have you, will we have the opportunity to be more together? I think so. I think that we're never going to be like those other businesses that people are trying to use as examples for all the things I said, but do we have the ability to be more? Yeah. And I've seen the local equivalent of this in the events industry many times. Like one of the anecdotes I can think of is talking to people in New Orleans, the event professionals there specifically who went through everything that they went through with the flooding. The people that came out of it, they came out of it stronger. Their associations and their networks became more closely knit, and they were more on the same page than they were before that. I think that there is an opportunity for things like that to happen, but it's still not going to be this mega mass scale thing that people are going to point to and say that's when we became a big boy industry like everybody else. It's like we're not. We're and for all the good of it too, right? Like we can carve out our own path, do things the way we want to do it, in a way that like a specific let's say a dentist couldn't. They can't reinvent how dentistry is done and that kind of thing. So we can do whatever we want to do, but and we have the flexibility to carve out our own path. The negative is that we'll never have that giant voice that conglomerate industries have. So it's I think that like that's not going to change post COVID. I think the only thing that could change is that we've all gone through some bad times.
Nick, I think you made a couple really interesting points there. One of them being that these big industries that we like to compare ourselves to when it comes to advocacy and lobbying, and when we say the airlines got a bailout, where's our bailout? Or we say they get the action that they need when they need it. When you think about it, there is a fraction of the number of businesses as there is in the event industry. The event industry represents tens of thousands of businesses, and a lot of those are smaller businesses that are not investing in the same way into advocacy and awareness. So I think that's really interesting, and I do think that this is a turning point for us as an industry. And I do think that it needed to be broken, completely shattered, and put back together properly. And I think there is an opportunity here for us. I want to be optimistic that as we recover from that, whatever that looks like and whenever that looks like, we are going to be wiser. We are going to know what we needed to get through this and why we didn't get it. It's nobody's fault that we're going through this. And while I think there's some government stuff that could be to blame, but that's a different conversation for another time. But none of us are at fault for this, and I think that there are important lessons that we've learned along the way. And I have to believe that some of these organizations that are popping up, the Live Events Coalition is such a great example of one that have made a commitment that they're not leaving after COVID. They're not going anywhere. They are going to make a commitment to stick around and see this industry through recovery and beyond. And I think that people like that are what we need right now. And I think there can be a bright future for us. But maybe it's time for us to all hiding under the same industry category. Maybe it's time for us to split up a little bit and allow other industry categories to be born out of this. We're all trying to be a part of the live experience or the event industry, and that might be what our problem is. That's why we can't get focused on a single issue. Yeah, well, what you got before I change topics?
I'd ask the audience, are we on this together, or are we all in this at the same time? And I said, vote number 1 and vote number 2 in the chat. Corrine says 2, Corey says 2, Rachel says both, Sherry says 2, David says 2, Amber says 2, Danny says 2, Robin says 2, David says 2. I can just do this literally for like the next hour if you want. It's a lot of 2s for sure.
I think it's really dog eat dog, honestly, because I think that we went into survival mode for a lot of people. I mean, the amount of people that I know that have been in the industry for decades who are trying to find jobs right now, who are, pivoting and out of the events industry. The amount of people who got 20 for 20, or 30 for 30s or whatever awards that are no longer in the events industry. Like, to me, I think that that's the real long-term pain that we're going to experience, is a brain drain of people who were new to the industry, who are going to migrate away to an industry that won't have to worry about stopping like this. So like my big fears are that when it comes to like how we can support each other, I would say that we once we get back to the way things are, I think we absolutely need to do whatever we can to attract people to the events industry in a way that I think that we've historically, and I've jumped on this soapbox many times, historically almost told people to go away in the way that we describe what we do. Like for whatever reason, I think people saw that what's that one movie with a wedding planner or something like that? That's like insanely old now.
My daughter's this something,
it's like
Father of the Bride.
Maybe it's like The Wedding Planner. That's exactly it. Where people are like, oh, it's not like that.
Oh yeah.
It's not fun. It's terrible. And you're like, well, okay. And I always thought like, man, then why do you do it? And all these other things. And then we would stress, we're in the top 5 worst jobs to have, more stressful. Like we would just wear that on our sleeve. And I think that we can't do that coming out of this. I think that we need to find what we love about it. And I think that we need to be passionate about the positives of it in a way that is not just passionate about what we do, but passionate about attracting smart people. Because my biggest fear of the events industry is that we will have booted all of the really smart people to Keller Williams.
Real estate
has
Keller Williams. We're looking for sponsors.
Shout out to real estate, who has taken so many event professionals and employed them.
A sponsor that will let us insult them.
I had a conversation with a big venue here in Canada, and I asked that question about, are you concerned about the talent loss, as so many people have gone? And he said to me, he says, it's my biggest worry right now, more than anything else. It's like business will recover, but getting back that talent, the hundreds of years worth of talent that have just exited out the door, and the realization that we're not just going to flip a switch and be back to work. There's not going to be a day that comes where we're like, okay, all 1.3 million of you come back to work, your jobs are here. It's going to be the slow recovery that we're not going to be able to offer full-time jobs. We're going to be able to offer jobs to do a gig here and there until the business builds back up. And who the hell wants to come back and do that? And I think that Nick, or Debbie's got a really said it.
Debbie's got a really great, Debbie Myers has a really great point. Are we losing talent or thinning the herd? My guess is both.
Yeah.
I think we're thinning the herd of the people who plateaued in their careers. I am worried about losing talent of the people who are new to the industry, who would have, once they paid their dues, who would have had a lot to contribute. But they just weren't in a financial position and to stick it through a couple years of not making money, right? So like I think that it is on the macro, you can say like, oh geez, like they didn't have what it takes to do it, and that's true. But on the micro, it's like saying a really smart person has a decision of what career to choose, and they were looking at contributing to live events in the future and innovation of live events and some other thing, and they have student loans and they have this and they have to pay their mortgage, And the reality is they can't just quote unquote stick it out for 3 years, especially 3 formidable years in the onset of their career. So for me, like I look at the long road of like, you know, a decade plus, and I say, man, I literally can think of a few of those people where I know that they've moved on, who have been in the industry for about 2 or 3 years, who have won like awards for being like, you know, in their 20s and making these big contributions, who are not in the events industry anymore. And that's anecdotal, but like I'm sure that there's more of them as debt and stuff piles up on you know, Generation Y. Again, I think if you've been in the industry for a long period of time, it's harder for that to really sink in, or you know, to be, you know, to understand that like being seen as not toughing it out or thinning the herd or that kind of thing. I get that. But I also look at it like, you know, like it's oftentimes just a job at the beginning, and then something happens and it becomes your passion, right? And I've been there. I don't know if you've been there, Dustin, where you got into it. It's just a job. And then you're like, man, you know what? I think I love this. And it's not you know, no one comes out of the womb an event professional. Like they, you know, especially most of us that have been in it for, you know, over 10 or 15 years. It's just it's a transient job where you come in at some level of it for hospitality, and all of a sudden you're like, you know what? I kind of like the hours, and I kind of like the flexibility, and like, yeah, that's, you know, it's tough and whatever, but I like, but at the beginning of it, when you're loading trucks, no one's like, this is the dream.
This is the dream. Well, for some people it is, but
I guess,
but I agree. And I do think that having strong association ties helps with that too. And I think a lot of our, you know, industry lifers and the most passionate people in our industry started because it was a job and found their community within it. Which is something that is at risk through all of this. It's something that we, you know, as we have hit harder times, we're putting all this pressure on these associations to have the answer for us, when really the association has done a tremendous amount to bring us great talent in this industry and allow those people to find a home in this industry, and has served us for so long, that sometimes I think that criticism is a bit unfair. And sometimes I think it's so easy to forget about the last, you know, 30 years of great work and connections and the camaraderie in the community, into this one single focus that is the challenge that we're facing today.
Agreed. And Dustin, you just said it. I think event professionals also get it. Right? They get the fact that success doesn't necessarily equal money. Success is, you know, having like, what?
I'm just crying.
I remember money.
I'm crying.
Remember money, guys?
Oh gosh, what is that? No, really, quality of life, truly successful people is, you know, like, you can go into work, or we were able to go back into work during the day, or during the times, and still going to work every single day, and every single moment is different, and you get to really create and cultivate those memories for others, and you're doing it with a bunch of other colleagues that are also passionate and actually care, right? They don't turn off at 5 o'clock. There is no 5 o'clock. And as long as you can set those healthy boundaries, you're able to then find, you know, have those connections and have more of that quality of life. So imagine all of us we always say like accountants, right? Like, so boring. So boring.
The event industry is not for the weak, but I think it does take a little bit of time to ease you into it to find your sea legs. And my biggest worry is people not having that bit of time, because they don't have the luxury of you know, of doing that in this period of time. And I don't know, like, that to me is the worst thing coming out of COVID, is the people who can't afford to, you know, stick with us, and because of that, we are not all getting the benefit of their intelligence, and the rising tide you know, raises all ships, but not if there's no rain. Did that work? Sometimes I try to make metaphors up.
No,
it sounded smart, Nick.
I know. It sounded smart is definitely the thing that I go for, and then afterwards I go, that was dumb. But
that was my tree and leaf and roots analogy. The other
tricking people. Yeah, it's like, is that good? It's either terrible or good. Anyways, I will say, and really shortly, anecdotally, I don't know another industry, and probably mostly fostered by my connections that I've made through ILEA, that would probably check in on people as well as at least I've experienced, where people will literally say that, hey, just checking in. How's everything going? And I think that one of those positives of an industry where the negative is there's not one big unit giant voice that can call the powers that be. Yes, but it has a folksy kind of earthy, real, genuine ness to it that I think that is the thing that's got me through a lot of this stuff is the connections and conversations of couple hour long phone conversations I've had over the past few months with people just dropping a line to say, how's it going? And I think that is something that, dentists, doctors, lawyers, airlines probably wouldn't have. So you have to take it, like we are the human people, I don't know what that means, but we're the touchy feely, connected to people. And because of that, I think that many of us have got each other through this year in a way that other industries probably would be, in a worse position for.
Thanks, Nick. I totally agree. There's a question here from Cesar. Cesar, if you want to just drop me your email, I'll email you a link to a recording we did about this exact question, because we have run ourselves out of time like we always do. And I'm already getting nudged from Lisa reminding me of the time.
Because we talk about our drinks, or we talk about everything else but the topic.
I know. So I thought we would just really quickly, final thoughts, words of encouragement. Nick, you can go last so you can work on your words of encouragement. And I'll start with Will.
I mean, I think one of the biggest things is just have fun. Remember what got you in this industry. And right now it's tough because a lot of us are doing things that we aren't comfortable with or unsure what to do, or, having to make really hard decisions, but always do it in the mode of realizing what's going to create happiness for you personally too. Because if you're not happy, no matter how hard you work or whatever it's going to be, it's just not going to create more happiness when it comes to it. Just so do what makes you happy and stay focused on that too.
Beautiful. Will. Tui, some words of encouragement.
Damn, I was so in the moment with Will that I was like,
Why
don't
do you
think
do
about what you're
that?
going to, because I want to be present. I want to really listen.
We're recording
Dustin?
this, right? You can watch it later.
No response. Yes. I would say, I don't know, the power of vulnerability. Share your story, everyone, because we do want to hear it and we're not alone, even though we're very isolated. Social connection is in our human DNA. And so when you share your story, when you're holding the pen to your own story, make sure you're the one writing it. And it's a new chapter, if anything. You like that, Nick? Yeah, you have to go after me too. That's it. And follow us, #Event Brew / all those things too. That's my plug.
Nick, final thoughts.
There's no rules. In a year where getting together with another human being was made illegal for good reasons, there's no rules. So embrace there's no rules. Make up your own new title, your new job, your new collaborative partners. Create something totally new. If you're doing the same thing you were doing at the beginning of the year that you're going to be doing at the beginning of year in 2021, something's wrong. Mm-hmm. Embrace the chaos and create your own way, because everyone else will be more ready than they've ever been before to take on something that is not part of the establishment. And I think that people are welcoming new ideas because those are the only ideas they're going to get us through.
That was beautiful, Nick. I'm glad I gave you time to put that together. That was great. That was great. And it's such a good message. And I echo all of that to everybody. Let's take this opportunity to tear things up and do things differently, and sit down and do a real hard and honest skills assessment on yourself. We had a great webinar through ILEA that was talking about just that. start thinking about what it is that you're great at and start lining that up with your passions. And we may come out of this doing something very different. We may come out of this doing something that we never thought we had a passion for before, and that's totally okay. And yeah, just keep pushing on, and continue to support our friends at ILEA, because they're doing great work for you. And on that note, I am going to end this episode of Event Brew. If you have anything that you want to share with us, you can email us at eventbrew@helloendless.com. And then we've got a voiceover guy that will tell you the rest. So from myself, Nick, Will, and Tui, thank you guys so much for listening, and we will see you again soon.